Welcome, chosen ones. This message is not for the faint-hearted. It is for those who have carried the weight of rejection, not from the world, but from their own family. You gave everything, love, obedience, effort, believing it would be enough to earn belonging, respect, and unconditional care. Yet despite all you poured into them, you were met with criticism, control, and shame. No matter how hard you tried, it was never enough. But today, it ends. C.S. Lewis once said, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." This is not just a hardship, it is a calling. A calling to rise above the pain, to break free from the illusion that their love must be earned, and to step into the truth of who you are. The rejection you have endured is not a reflection of your worth. It is evidence of something far greater, your light, your purpose, your destiny. You have felt it all. The sting of disapproval, the silent wounds of words left unsaid, the loneliness of standing in a room full of people who should love you but only seem to tolerate you. You have spent years shrinking yourself, bending, twisting, molding yourself into a shape they would accept, but acceptance never came. And in the quiet of your heart you began to wonder, am I really the problem? But here is the truth. It was never you. You were not the flaw in the design. You were the disruption in their illusion, and that made you dangerous. Your presence, your growth, your refusal to conform, it all threatened the fragile structure they built. A structure where love was conditional, control was disguised as care, and shame was the weapon of choice. This message is for you, the one who has always felt like an outsider, the one who was labeled difficult, too much, too sensitive, too different. It is time to let go of the lies. It is time to reclaim the power they tried to steal from you. Today, we uncover the truth. Stay until the end, because what you are about to hear will change everything. From the very beginning, something about you set you apart. You felt it before you could ever name it, a quiet knowing deep in your soul that whispered, you don't belong here. Maybe it was in the way they looked at you, the way their words never quite carried warmth, or the way love always seemed just out of reach. In their eyes, you were either too much or not enough. Too loud when your joy spilled over, too quiet when your thoughts turned inward. Too strong when you stood in your truth, too weak when you let your emotions show. No matter how you adjusted, no matter how carefully you walked the line, your existence itself seemed to be a problem in need of fixing. So you did what any child desperate for love would do. You tried to change. You softened your voice, censored your thoughts, dimmed your hope that this time they would see you. This time they would finally love you without conditions. But the harder you tried, the more the goalposts shifted. Their approval was always just out of reach, slipping through your fingers like sand. You learned that love in this family was something to be earned, not something freely given. And when you couldn't meet their impossible expectations, shame took root. Shame whispered in your mind, maybe they're right. Maybe I am the problem. You started to believe them. You questioned your worth, your identity, even your right to exist as you were. Anxiety became your constant shadow, self-doubt your closest critic. And in your darkest moments, the pain turned inward. Some of you tried to numb it, through isolation, through self-harm, through burying yourselves in work or relationships that mirrored the rejection you knew so well. But then, something changed. You saw a glimpse of what love could be. You saw parents who celebrated their children, siblings who lifted each other up, families where love was not a prize to be won, but a gift freely given. And it wasn't jealousy that filled your heart. It was grief. Grief for what you never had. Grief for the love that should have been yours. But that grief was your wake-up call. Because the truth is, it was never you. It was never about you at all. That grief was your wake-up call. It cracked open the illusion you had spent your whole life believing, the illusion that if you were just better, quieter, stronger, more obedient, then maybe, just maybe, they would finally love you the way you needed to be loved. But the truth hit you like a wave. It was never you. It was never about you. You were not the flaw in the design. You were the scapegoat, the one they projected their insecurities onto, the one they blamed for their own shortcomings, the one they used to distract from the dysfunction they refused to acknowledge. You became the problem, not because you were the problem, but because they needed a problem to keep their illusion alive. You were the light in a house full of shadows. Your very presence, your ability to see things differently, to question, to grow, it unsettled them. It exposed what they did not want to face in themselves. And so, instead of embracing your light, they tried to extinguish it. They called you selfish when you set boundaries. They called you ungrateful when you refused to accept mistreatment. They called you dramatic when you spoke your truth, because as long as they could make you the villain, they never had to look in the mirror. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world." Your pain was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to wake you up, to show you that you were never meant to fit into their mold. You were meant to break free from it. The rejection you carried for so long? It is proof of your resilience, not your failure. The shame they handed you? It is a reflection of their brokenness, not yours. Their inability to love you? It has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with their blindness. The enemy has been using your family's rejection to break you, to keep you trapped in a cycle of self-doubt, begging for scraps of love from people who were never capable of giving it freely. But the enemy underestimated one thing: you were never meant to live under their approval. Psalm 55:22 says, "Cast your burden on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved." God has always known your heart. He saw every tear, every prayer, every lonely night. And he never designed you to live in a constant battle for acceptance. You were chosen, not by them, but by him. And his love has never been conditional. Now is the time to let go of their expectations, their opinions, their manipulation. Now is the time to step into the truth of who you are. You were not made to be controlled. You were not made to be silenced. You were made for more. And this is just the beginning. When you finally decide to walk away, to reclaim your peace, to stop begging for the love that was always withheld from you, something predictable happens. They panic, because they never expected you to leave. They assumed you would always stay, always comply, always accept whatever treatment they decided to give you. And when they see you slipping from their control, they do what they have always done: they twist the narrative. Suddenly, you are the villain. You are selfish for setting boundaries. You are ungrateful for refusing to tolerate mistreatment. You are cruel for daring to choose your own well-being. They will use the same weapons they always have: guilt, shame, manipulation, to try and pull you back. They will tell others how you abandoned the family, how you changed, how you turned your back on them. They will make sure everyone knows that you were the problem all along. But this time, it doesn't work, because this time, you know the truth. Their accusations may sting. Their words may reopen old wounds. There may be nights when you question yourself, wondering, am I doing the right thing? But in those moments, hold on to this. John 15:18 says, "If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first." Yes, this even applies to your family. Their rejection of you is not about your worth. It is about their inability to control you. You see, your refusal to stay small threatens them. Your growth challenges their belief that things should stay the same. Your strength reminds them of their own weakness, and that is why they fight so hard to pull you back in. But you are no longer bound by their expectations. You do not need to defend yourself against lies. You do not need to prove your worth to those who refuse to see it. You do not need to stay in a place that breaks you just to make others comfortable. The Bible reminds us in Proverbs 17:28, "Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues." Silence is a weapon too. You do not owe them explanations. You do not owe them access to your life. The moment you stop engaging in their games, they lose their power over you. When you must respond, do so with wisdom. Do not argue, do not explain, do not justify. Simply say, "I hear your concerns, but I need to make choices that align with my peace and purpose." If they accuse you of being selfish, say, "I love this family, but I cannot sacrifice my well-being to meet expectations that were never meant for me." Your strength will confuse them. Your peace will anger them. But your freedom? That is what they fear the most. Let them play their games alone. You are no longer their puppet. You are no longer at their mercy. You are free. Breaking free is not just about walking away. It is about unlearning the lies they fed you, about releasing the guilt they planted in you, about reclaiming the love that was always meant to be yours. You have spent years being conditioned to believe that their rejection was your fault, that if you had just tried harder, been better, sacrificed more, they would have finally loved you the way you longed to be loved. But here is the truth. Love should not be a battle. Love should not be earned. Love should not hurt. The enemy has been using your family's rejection as a tool to break you. But what the enemy meant for evil, God is turning for your good. Every time they withheld love, God was teaching you how to find it in Him. Every time they broke you down, God was rebuilding you in His image. Every time they told you that you were nothing, God whispered the truth. You are chosen. You are loved. You are His. Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Not their words, not their manipulation, not their judgment. You are free." But freedom comes with a cost. The moment you begin to break away, they will fight harder to pull you back. They will send messages dripping with guilt, reminding you of all they have done for you. They will tell others that you have turned your back on the family. They will play the victim, rewriting history to make you the villain. Do not engage, do not explain, do not justify. When they try to drag you into arguments, choose silence. When they try to guilt you into staying, hold firm. When they demand that you prove your love, remind yourself that love is not proven through suffering. You owe them nothing but the love of Christ. And sometimes love looks like distance. If they accuse you of being cold, say, "I am choosing distance because I need clarity. I still love you, but I cannot allow this relationship to harm me anymore." If they call you selfish, say, "I love this family, but I will not sacrifice my well-being to meet expectations that were never meant for me." Psalm 139:13-14 says, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." You do not need their approval. You do not need their validation. You do not need their permission to live in peace. The Bible warns us that even our own families may not always be a place of safety. Matthew 10:36 says, "A man's enemies will be the members of his own household." But God also promises something greater, a new family, a true family, built not by blood, but by love. If your family refuses to love you unconditionally, God will send you people who will. He will send you friends who feel like siblings. He will send you mentors who love you like parents. He will send you a community that sees you, accepts you, and cherishes you for who you are. And when you find these people, you will realize something powerful. You were never hard to love. You were just surrounded by the wrong people. So walk away from the ones who only know how to break you. Walk toward the ones who build you up. Walk toward the life God has been waiting to give you all along. Romans 8:31 says, "If God is for us, who can be against us? Let their rejection be the fire that refines you, not the chains that bind you." You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out. You were never meant to be controlled. You were meant to be free. You were never meant to earn love. You were meant to receive it freely. And now you will. You have carried the weight of their rejection for too long. You have spent years trying to prove your worth to people who were never willing to see it. But today, you leave all of that behind. Because the truth is, you were never rejected. You were redirected. God was not punishing you by allowing this pain. He was protecting you from a life of constant manipulation, from a cycle of generational dysfunction, from a family that could not give you what your soul was created to receive. Real love, real belonging, real peace. Romans 8:31 says, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" You spent years believing that something was wrong with you, that if you had been easier to love, they would have stayed, that if you had been less sensitive, less opinionated, less you, then maybe they wouldn't have turned against you. But here is what you must know. God created you exactly as you are, and nothing about you is a mistake. Psalm 139:14 says, "I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, I know that full well." You are not too much. You were not enough. You were exactly who you were meant to be. And that is why they resented you. That is why they rejected you. Not because you were flawed, but because your light exposed their darkness. They needed someone to blame. They needed someone to project their shame onto. And you were the easiest target because you were different. Because you saw things differently. Because you did not fall in line like the rest. But today, you stop carrying the burdens they placed on you. You do not have to prove yourself to them. You do not have to fight for their love. You do not have to go back to a place that was never safe for you. You have permission to walk away. Not in anger, but in peace. And as you walk away, you walk into something greater, life where love is real, where belonging is unconditional, where peace is not just something you dream about, but something you finally live in. Yes, they will talk about you. Yes, they will try to make you feel guilty. Yes, they will try to convince others that you were the problem. But what they think of you does not define you. God's word does. Isaiah 54:17 says, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." Not their words, not their manipulation, not their guilt trips. Nothing they do can take away what God has for you. And when they try to pull you back, remember this: you do not need their approval. You do not need their validation. You do not need their permission to live in peace. The love you've been searching for, it is already yours. God will send you a new family, a true family. People who see you. People who love you. People who cherish you for exactly who you are. Because family is not just about blood, it is about love. And if they cannot love you unconditionally, God will send you people who will. So today, you make a choice. To stop fighting for love that was never real. To stop carrying pain that was never yours. To stop believing lies that were never meant for you. Today you walk away, not because you are weak, but because you are strong. Not because you are bitter, but because you are free. Not because you don't love them, but because you finally love yourself enough to choose peace. And that is the greatest victory of all.